Hello and welcome to NewsX World. I'm Joshua Barnes. Let's take a look at our stories. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi warned Pakistan that there will be further cross-border strikes if there are further terror attacks on India. Modi said he would not be deterred by what he called Islamabad's nuclear blackmail. Global stock markets have surged after the US and China agreed to slash steep tariffs for 90 days, bringing an end to a near-trade standstill between the world's top two economies. Tit-for-tat tariffs have been lowered between the countries by 115%. Meanwhile, President Trump has offered to join potential Russia-Ukraine peace talks in Turkey. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he would meet Putin for direct negotiations on May the 15th, after Western leaders pushed for a 30-day ceasefire. Israel says there will be no ceasefire after a brief pause in military action in Gaza for the release of 21-year-old Israeli-American Edan Alexander. Palestinian authorities report that Israeli tank shelling and air assaults resumed shortly after the release. Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial has begun in New York, with witnesses testifying against the music mogul. Prosecutors say women were attacked after being lured into relationships. The defense says activities were consensual and part of a swinger lifestyle. US President Donald Trump has signed a wide-ranging executive order directing drug makers to lower the prices of their medicines. This gives companies 30 days to bring their prices in line with other countries, though experts say it will be difficult to implement. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who was in prison at The Hague over alleged war crimes, has been elected as mayor of his home country. Vote counting continues after crucial midterm elections in the country. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's Labour Party have been sworn in for a second term following a landslide national election win. The opposition Liberal Party have elected Susan Ley as their first female leader ever, after former leader Peter Dutton lost his seat. We start this hour with further updates from the ongoing India-Pakistan tensions. Of course, following extreme provocations from Pakistan, action has stalled. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called Operation Sindoor a defining moment in India's security policy, marking a new normal in the country's fight against terrorism. In his first address to the nation since the Pahalgam terror attack, Modi said India's response was decisive, strategic and signals a zero-tolerance approach to cross-border terror. Modi stressed that the pause in military action is not a conclusion, but a watchful wait to monitor Pakistan's future conduct. Let's have a listen to some of his statements.
और बुरी तरह पीटने के बाद इसी मजबूरी में 10 मई की दोपहर को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने हमारे डीजीएमओ को संपर्क किया। तब तक हम आतंकवाद के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बड़े पैमाने पर तबाह कर चुके थे। हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे कि वो क्या रवैया अपनाता है।
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said his administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Trump claimed the deal averted what could have been a nuclear war, adding that trade pressure was key to ending the hostilities. This is what he said.
We helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop.
Meanwhile, diplomatic sources have confirmed that US officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, held separate conversations with India's Prime Minister, Foreign Minister and National Security Advisor in recent days. Sources emphatically stated that trade was not discussed in any of these talks, contradicting claims made publicly by President Donald Trump. The Directors General of military operations of both Pakistan and India spoke on May the 12th. They have agreed to avoid any further hostile action and to enforce a strict no-fire policy along the border. Both sides also discussed measures to immediately begin troop reduction in forward areas. Well, joining us to discuss the ongoing ceasefire is retired Captain Anil Gore, a defence expert joining us from Jammu and Kashmir. Captain Anil Gore, thank you for being here with us. Let's first look at the end of that short read that I gave, talking about the DGMO's meeting. What's the positive aspect of that conversation moving forward with this ceasefire that, of course, came into place a couple of days ago?
See, when Pakistan's DGMO called our DGMO and requested for a halt in operations against them, our DGMO made it very clear to him that, look, in case there is any discretion from Pakistan, whether it's the drones or any otherwise, things will carry on. And then after talking with the Prime Minister and the Security Affairs Cabinet, they decided, okay, fine, from 5 p.m. there would be a ceasefire. But then Pakistan, that same very night, sent in drones again in J&K in many places. And that was again warned to, and a very strict warning was given to DGMO over there that, look, this what you are trying to do is something which is there. And he apologized and said that these are some rogue elements within the army, because you know what is the state of affairs of Pakistan, that their army functions independently from even their own commands. And that is what happened. Now yesterday when the DGMOs talked, then they had a long talk on it and they decided that what will be the modalities for this. And what our Prime Minister yesterday evening said very clearly, I think that message is very clear, not only to Pakistan, but to the entire world. India is not that India, what the entire world and the Western nations were thinking about, that India is some third world country. Today, India has demonstrated that its own indigenous air defense system is much, much better than what even Israel has or what even America is trying to make. And that is the one that has protected us from all what was thrown by Pakistan towards India. And that is the one that also allowed us to decimate Pakistan's air defense systems, all the Chinese equipment that they got, and all the Chinese planes that J-10 they were harping upon, and even their missiles and all that they had made, they were harping upon and trying to strut around the world that, look, we are a nuclear power and everything and all. And that is what has demolished all their claims. Now today, the situation stands very clearly. Our Prime Minister has said that Operation Sindoor is not finished. It's not over. It is a continuing operation. We have just had a, what should they say is a stop in the operations for some time, and we are going to observe what Pakistan does. Pakistan has also been given one more instruction, that is that they have to hand over all the terrorists that have taken part in the Pahalgam massacre and stop the terror factories that they have been running around over there. Today, it is very clear to the world that whatever Pakistan has been denying all these years, that Pakistan is hand in glove with the terrorists. We have seen when the Namaz-e-Janaza was taken out for the slain Pakistani terrorists in Bahawalpur, how Abdul Rauf, who is a proscribed terrorist, from the United Nations and carries a 50 lakh rupees award surfaced. All the
Yes.
time, Pakistan has been saying that he was not there at all. And then we also saw, the world has seen how the entire Pakistan top hierarchy of the army and the politicians were
Yes,
standing
retired
there
Captain
that man-
Anil Gore. Sorry to cut you off there. We are running shorter on time today, and there are a couple of other points I want to get to. Specifically, first, around Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clear message, which is a clear shift in policy that we've seen from India. An act of terrorism is an act of war. What's the significance of this policy change, and now the fact that Narendra Modi has reiterated that clear shift in policy?
That is to me.
Yes. We're only
Yeah.
speaking to you on this
You see,
topic.
Right till 7th of May, Pakistan has always been using the nuclear blackmail, and we have seen that right since '86 when Pakistan developed the nuclear weapon. They have been always using that, and in that shadow of that, they have been sending the terrorists and sending all the terrorism, spreading terrorism in India, because Operation Topak of General Ziaul Haq, that was formulated by him after Pakistan realized that it cannot win a conventional war in India. That started. And every time there was action like that, this nuclear blackmail was forced upon India. The same thing happened when Kargil was there, when Musharraf sent in the troops over there, and then also when India retaliated, the point that Musharraf came on air and said that we have a nuclear weapon and we will use it if required. And that is again, that nuclear blackmail carried on. But today, that nuclear blackmail is over. Why? Because the nuclear storage facilities, I can say, because we have the information, they have been decimated. All that is there. That is why the Americans came in. That is why the American radiation, the plane to detect the radiation is there since 3 days in Pakistan, going around Rawalpindi, Sargodha and Jacobabad. This was the thing, and this was the Achilles heel that has now been destroyed. Pakistan now does not have any leg to stand on. And that is why our Prime Minister has he said it very emphatically. We will not stand for any nuclear blackmail anymore.
Yes.
Now Pakistan has to realize that in case it wants to progress in the world, I will just digress a little bit. You see, Pakistan and India got independence together. Today, where is India? Number 4 in the world economy. Reaching Mars, landing on moon, sending a manned space mission, making all these technological advances. And where is Pakistan? So this is the difference between there when you spend all the money that you have into terrorism and into the other things. This is what happens to a country.
Yes,
Now,
retired
has to
Captain
think-
Gore, we are short on time. As I mentioned earlier, I do want to bring up the comments from Donald Trump. Of course, he's given this press conference where he's spoken about the US involvement in these ceasefire negotiations. He's mentioned trade. He said that, as we heard earlier in the programme, that trade with both countries would be key moving forward, and that if the war continues, that wouldn't be an option. But this has been denied by Indian officials who say trade wasn't discussed during any US intervention. Why do you think Donald Trump and India's messaging is conflicting?
See, the point is that President Donald Trump jumped into it, rather I would say he jumped the gun. When the DGMO talked with our DGMO at 5 p.m. that day, Donald Trump thought that it is better that I announce the thing because, like, you see, now I will just put it another way. He's been trying to stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. He's been trying to stop the thing that is going on between Israel and in Gaza. And he wanted also to stop, to try to come and mediate between India and Pakistan, which he has been unsuccessful in it. Now, Obama got the Nobel Prize just for this, that he would bring peace. But he did not bring peace. In fact, he is the one who also sent in troops to other places. So Mr. Donald Trump, what I feel is, thought that yes, this is the right opportunity that I should project myself and project America as such. But let me tell you one thing very clearly. Trade was not discussed with the Indians. Neither was this discussed with the Indians for the ceasefire, because That is the prerogative of our officials, and that we only decided what to do. Now, if Mr. Donald Trump had come and tell me, wasn't the big thing the Indus Water Treaty that is there, that has been kept in abeyance? India has not agreed to it at all. They said that that will remain over there where it is. All those decisions taken on that day will remain, and Indus Water Treaty will remain in abeyance. We are not going to negotiate on that. Trade-wise, our Prime Minister has made it very clear that terror and trade don't go together. Whether America likes it or not, India is a big partner today when America is fighting against China.
Joining us.
All these companies are moving over to India for manufacturing.
Retired Captain Anil Gore, unfortunately we have to move on, we are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us and providing your insight. Of course, trade, Donald Trump has raised trade as a point of discussion between India and Pakistan, which has been denied. But moving on, and there has been a trade agreement in place between the United States and China following tit-for-tat tariffs. An agreement has been reached between the world's top two economies. Stocks and markets have surged on Monday after the US and China agreed to slash steep tariffs for at least 90 days, tapping the brakes on a trade war between China and the United States amid fears of a global recession. But the temporary pause has reportedly done little to address the underlying schisms that led to the dispute, including the US trade deficit with China and US President Donald Trump's demand for more action from Beijing to combat the US fentanyl crisis. According to reports, under the temporary truce, the US will cut extra tariffs it imposed on Chinese imports last month from 145% to just 30% for the next 3 months, while Chinese duties on US imports will fall to 10% from 125. Moreover, US Trade Representative Jameson Greer said in an interview that in addition to the tariff reductions, China has agreed to lift export countermeasures issued after April the 2nd, including restrictions on rare earth minerals and magnets used widely in high-tech manufacturing. Meanwhile, financial markets cheered the reprieve in the conflict as Wall Street stocks finished sharply higher, with the S&P 500 closing at its highest level since March the 3rd, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite recording its highest close since February the 28th. Here is what Scott Bessent and Jameson Greer have had to say.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. Just like with all our other trading partners, as long as there is good faith effort, engagement, and constructive dialogue, then we will keep moving forward.
Retain our 10% global baseline tariff, which we have on other countries. We have, in addition to that, previous measures that we've retained, which have been, frankly, effective in reducing the U.S. bilateral trade deficit with China over the past few years. So that leaves us in a very good position all in with respect to measures on Chinese imports, but more importantly, leaves us in a constructive path forward to have a positive conversation with the.
Well, meanwhile, Donald Trump has also said that he expects to speak to China's President Xi Jinping at the end of the week. What did Trump say?
Talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing.
Well, joining us to discuss all of these latest developments is Dr. Jayjit Bhattacharya, President of the Centre for Digital Economic Policy Research, joining us from New Delhi. Dr. Bhattacharya, thank you ever so much for being here. Let's talk about first the significance of these steep tariff reductions. Of course, global markets have had their reactions. What do you expect to come from the next days and weeks following this big shift from both the United States and China?
I think first we need to keep in mind that this relaxation is only for a period of 90 days, starting from May 14th. So we need to really see how it unfolds, because this is not the end of the conversations on the trade deal between US and China. But clearly what had happened was that much of global trade had come to a grinding halt because of astronomical tariffs being put in by both sides. Now, because of the trade deal, albeit temporary in that sense, the tariffs on China by US has been brought down to 30% from some obnoxious 145% that it was earlier. And similarly, China has reduced the tariffs on US to 10%, down from the 125% it had put in. In fact, China had come back and said, we will not increase the tariff any further from 125% because that's meaningless. At 125%, all trade stops, and therefore there's no need to increase the tariff. So what has really happened is that now we have started having the trade. Now it's also a signal that things will go back to normal. Now the point is that will it be a new normal, or will it be back to what it was before all this trade fracas started off? And from all signs that we see, it seems to be gliding back to what it was before all of this fracas started off. The other collateral implication is that China was dumping quite rampantly during this period when it was not able to send its goods to US, and therefore economies such as the Indian economy, the Vietnamese, the Indonesian, and so on, were suffering majorly because of the severe dumping that China was indulging in. In fact, then if you look at India, there were products like KTB, there were products like TDQ, insoluble sulfur, PX13, which were completely massacred because of the dumping from China. What it's going to be interesting to see is if China rolls back this dumping, or will it continue to do dumping in all these other economies to degrade their capacities to manufacture chemicals and other manufactured products. And I think that'll be an interesting note to see. Also, we need to see what exactly will be the final contours of the US-China trade agreement, because at the end of the day, the whole raison d'etre of the US slapping these tariffs was to reduce the trade deficit between China and US. It doesn't look like that has happened, and therefore it'll be interesting to see what is the final deal after 90 days.
Yes, Dr. Bhattacharya, I'm glad that you brought that point up at the end, because of course Trump's tariff action, Trump's Liberation Day, those images of him holding the board up with all of the countries and the reciprocal tariffs that they would be facing. Given that you've said already there, it seems like the trade imbalances haven't been resolved in the way Trump wanted. Do you think that this, for Trump, has been somewhat of a failure?
It's too early to pass a judgment. I'm sure there'll be some benefit coming to US. I'm sure there are finer texts that will be emerging. And also, as I said, the final agreement will be in the next 90 days. So it'll all depend on what the finer texts are, what the final agreement is. But from what we see as of now, as of today, it does look like US did not gain much out of this disruption that happened for the last month or so. And therefore, perhaps they did not gain much out of it. Also, the fact that it seems that US blinked first, and I think on your channel I'd mentioned earlier that for a democracy to hold on to a position which is impacting its citizens and businesses is very, very difficult. And therefore, predictably, the US blinked first as per all the media reports. And hence, the deal that one gets because of blinking first is always not as good as one is looking forward to. And therefore, there is a handicap that US is having in its negotiations with China.
Absolutely. And Dr. Bhattacharya, to bring an end to our discussion, Donald Trump signalling that there may be a conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping coming soon. What's the significance for the ongoing trade discussions and tensions, but also the wider geopolitical situation, given the fact that there have been tensions between China and the US?
I think from the geopolitical perspective, China has identified US as its adversary. And I think the vice versa position has also been taken. And that being one of the key drivers for US to withdraw out of Afghanistan, under Trump 1 regime, as they wanted to focus their resources on what they said as one single adversary. So clearly they have entrenched positions. Clearly they see that they cannot establish their global hegemony in the presence of the other power. So therefore they are in a way locked in a conflict situation, while they still need to manage that the conflict does not lead to their domestic impact, or if I say degradation in that sense, because by disrupting the trade, it's impacting the producers in China for sure. They are in the brink, but it's also impacting the consumers in US because the shelves are going empty and the prices will very quickly start going up. And that's something that a democratic country cannot manage. And also from the jobs perspective in China, the whole deal with the Communist Party of China and its people was to ensure that there is prosperity. Such sudden reduction in prosperity would surely will surely hurt the Chinese Communist Party's position within China.
Dr. Jayjat Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining us on NewsX World once again. That is unfortunately all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you all the latest updates from across the world very shortly.